Welcome to this video where you will learn how to spot emotional blackmailing and how to stop it. Before we get into that, let me explain to you what emotional blackmailing is and how it works. If you are already familiar with the concept, feel free to skip to any part of the video that you deem most useful. You can come back and re-watch the parts you wish to learn more about at any time. Emotional blackmailing is a severe manipulation strategy. The manipulator is instrumentalizing emotions to pressure his target toward a certain desired behavior, a behavior that the target would otherwise likely not adopt if he or she wasn't pressured into it. The dynamic of emotional blackmail works mainly through three induced emotions: fear, obligation, and guilt. You can use the acronym FOG to remember them. It is a good metaphor because the manipulator aims to cloud his target's judgment in a subtle fog of these emotions, so that sometimes the victim is not even aware of what is happening. A telltale sign that your conversation partner is trying to push you into a certain direction is that he or she works a lot with if-then sentence constructs. A very severe example of an if-then construct is the threat that if you continue this behavior, then the consequence will be that I will inflict harm upon myself. It might sound extreme, but you would be surprised by how common such a threat is in romantic relationships. It is aimed at inflicting guilt, that it would be our fault if our partner was in pain. Another if-then construct that is aimed at the emotion of fear is the threat that, if you do this, I will inflict harm upon you. This could come in any form and does not have to be physical. The person could spread rumors about us or inflict financial damage on us. A more subtle form of emotional blackmailing are things like, if you do this, you're hurting me. Now, it might not seem obvious at first because it sounds vulnerable and not threatening at all. Nevertheless, it can be used to pressure us into a behavioral change and oppress any form of behavior that your partner, for example, declared as hurtful. Another form is that, if you do this, you're hurting yourself. You will see what the negative consequences of your behavior are. This construction is aimed at making you question your judgment and induce fear about your own choices. Most often, manipulators connect the alleged positive consequence with themselves, such as, without me, you will not get far anywhere. The last form of if-then blackmailing works with positive incentives. The manipulator makes big promises, but there are always conditions that need to be met. Many times, they do not follow through on their promises once others meet their demands, finding additional excuses to explain why what others have done for them did not meet their criteria. You might notice that different personality styles use different forms of these if-then constructs. If you spot that someone, either in your relationships, at work, or in your friendships, uses a lot of these if-then sentences, you might want to pay close attention to that person, because it is likely that he or she is trying to manipulate you by subtly inducing fear, obligation, or guilt. Especially the subtlety of certain comments can make it hard to spot at first glance. One such a form of extremely subtle emotional blackmail is hiding it in compliments. Depending on the context, a phrase like, "I could not live without you," might sound well-meaning in the moment, but it can also be aimed at reinforcing obligation and dependence if it happens on a regular basis. This does not only happen in romantic partnerships, but can also be observed in parent-child relationships in such form as, "I raised you, now you owe me," inducing feelings of obligation and guilt if not fulfilling requests, because what kind of ungrateful child would you be if you didn't? Very often, the use of such manipulation techniques is itself driven by deep-rooted fear, namely the fear of losing control or losing you. They want to be in control of the situation and make you live up to their demands. Emotional blackmail often has a long history. Most of the time, the behavior is biographically anchored. The person may never have learned that their needs can be satisfied without pressure, or has never learned to deal with frustration appropriately. While it is good to realize the underlying needs such a person might have and show empathy, it is important to stand firm and not give in to such techniques. There is a difference between the needs that we all have and the strategies that we choose to fulfill them. A note on the side: emotional blackmailing cannot be attributed to a specific toxic personality type. It can be used by anyone and everyone in certain situations. And not every comment that communicates a need is an attempt of emotional blackmail. Communicating our needs transparently and honestly is a cornerstone of a healthy relationship. It all depends on the context in which it is said, how it is said, and what the intention is. Using communication to suggest behavioral change is completely fine if it is not used to pressure someone into behavior change and oppress. Try to give yourself time to think and not react immediately. Especially if the emotional blackmail is already a very ingrained pattern, you need some time to recognize and correctly assess the situation. Ask for a short break so that you too can break your own behavioral patterns and react differently than you have before. Create some distance between the trigger and your usual reaction to give yourself the chance to reflect. If you notice that you are being pressured and you have the urge to defend and justify your plans, opinions, or behavior, but then in the short break you realize that you have done nothing wrong, don't get pressured into being defensive. Don't defend yourself if you haven't done anything wrong. Emotional blackmailers are skilled at blaming and passing on responsibilities that you don't have and don't need to have. Stay calm and show resolve in your attitude. Remember, more often than not, your conversation partner is not a narcissistic psychopath, but your partner, your parent, or your friend with deep-rooted fears on their own. Try to emphasize your existing connection. You can recognize their needs without giving in to their manipulative strategies. If the situation is very severe, professional help is helpful. In professional life, mediators are a good way to resolve conflicts. In private life, a therapy can bring long-lasting change over time. It is difficult to change an existing routine. Every change takes time.